Hi friends, how's everyone doing this morning? Well, the heat and humidity has kicked into high gear here in Pennsylvania. What I want to start out with today is to process some snowball viburnum. We'll go ahead and cut that. I want to get it in the refrigerator so that the blooms, the stems, and the leaves get nice and turgid. Then what I want to do is plant out some more North Lawn Saving Grace in the borders. I've decided to put all my North Lawn Saving Grace tubers in the border this year, so that she'll just be repeated over and over and over again all throughout my garden. Then we're going to interplant some dahlias and basil as an experiment. We're going to support my peonies today. And yeah, I'm sure there's some other things we'll get around to. I'm going to be interplanting lilies, saponaria, and nigella, but I might not get around to that today because it looks like we're going to get a thunderstorm around 11. Before we harvest that viburnum, let's head back to the raised bed garden so I can show you some of these interplantings that I'm trying or trying again. So I told you the lilies and the saponaria worked really well together last year. And I guess I haven't showed you yet that I have been working feverishly on getting the raised beds pulled apart so that we have a nice wide path in between every single raised bed. I've started to put in some vegetables. I've started to lay out a lot of my interplanting because for me it's very helpful for me to see things above ground before I stick them underground. So I think I'll cover the lilies another day in another video. But here we're going to be planting some larger dahlias. These are David Howard and a cactus variety that I'll put on the screen. And you can see I just have 4 here, but I'm planting basil around them that I grew from seed. And my plan is when these start to compete with each other, or there's any kind of issues with the moisture that we get and overcrowding, I'll just go ahead and harvest the basil. And then I'll be utilizing this space for food and flowers. So we're going to repeat that over there. I decided to do artichokes in the middle of the raised beds. I grew artichokes at work and I love them so much. I want to grow them again here at home. I'm doing cucumbers and butterfly pea up the same trellis. The other day I added about 75 Peter Pears gladiolas to this bed of peach straw flower, so we'll see how that does. I figured it should work well because gladiolas is just a one and done cut, and that's definitely a flower that we're going to be selling. Oh, it looks like one of my sunflowers got knocked over here. This is the bed of sunflowers that I was just going to keep flipping over and over and over again to fix the soil. But what I'm thinking about doing is about 2 to 3 weeks before these sunflowers bloom, coming in between them with more Asiatic lily successions and seeing if I can utilize this bed and go sunflowers, Asiatic lilies, sunflowers again. This bed is branching sunflowers, and this is really for protection from the road. And I've started to see the forget-me-nots come in amongst the ranunculus, and they're right there. What I'm also seeing is lots of feverfew seedlings, so I'm just going to leave everything go. And if I need to thin things out, I will, but my plan is to go ahead and harvest these ranunculus, sell them, and then when it gets too hot, just let the corms go dormant, let the feverfew and the forget-me-nots take over, and hopefully then we should have another cut of these ranunculus in the very late fall. That happened by accident one year, so this year I'm trying to actively create that situation. You know, it's been about 4 or maybe 5 years since I managed the vegetable farm over at Plain and Fancy Farm, and when I was first interviewing for that job, I told him my intent was to do 50% flowers and 50% vegetables because I wanted to go back to completely organic practices there. And I had a really hard time convincing the owner to go that way. We eventually, hey Grace, just agreed on 25% flowers and 75% vegetables. But it was really funny because in the end, he ended up really loving it and wanting to do even more the following season. And what I did over there is I did all edible flowers in the rows. So that was really fun. But I just think interplanting is so much fun, and it really encourages us to pay attention to what's going on underground too. What is the root system like of that plant? Are the root systems going to compete? Are they going to create a disease problem when we're planting them close together, or are they going to create a disease and pest solution if planted together? So I'm just really excited about doing more of that this year. And it's funny, I kind of have started to miss working over at Plain and Fancy in a weird way. way, but maybe it's just that I miss growing all those vegetables. Anyway, all that to say, let's go ahead and harvest some viburnum together now. I don't think you can see Grace, but she's drinking out of my vase water right now. Don't worry, there's no flower food in that yet. So we had some big storms lately, which caused a lot of branches of this snowball viburnum to fall right over. I like to process the snowball viburnum very similar to a lilac. I'm going to remove any lower foliage that doesn't have blooms on it so that the stem has less to hydrate. I'm going to go ahead and cut the stem at an angle. If a stem is cut straight across and then it's sitting at the bottom of the vase, often it can be clogged. Then I'm going to create a crisscross cut here through the vascular system of the stem. Once again, it just allows for more water uptake through this woody stem up to the bloom heads. I'm going to stick them in fresh, cool water, and then the number one thing I want to do is put them in my refrigerator for about 4 to 6 hours, and that'll really make the stems nice and turgid. If I was going to go ahead and sell these blooms, which I'm not, they're pretty dirty, they fell over in the storm, I would also dip them in quick dip, once again, just to help the free flow of water up the stem to the bloom heads. And I see a big difference when I use quick dip on woody stems. It really takes something that might melt down in the vase after 3 days and increases their vase life to 5 to 7 days. In fact, I experimented a lot with arrowwood viburnum last year and I saw a big difference, quick dip versus no quick dip. So I always use it on woody stems if I'm going to be selling a woody stem at the flower stand. Let's go ahead and get some supports on these younger peonies now. These peonies I think are 4 years old, and for a peony that's that age, I like to use these half moon supports. You can just get these on Amazon. They're super cheap and they last forever. I'll stick these on an angle in front of the peony, push it in, and try to get all the stems within the half moon. I like this size peony support for peonies that are younger, up to about 4 to 5 years. Anything older than that, oh, I see Rocky's collar right there. Anything older than that, I like to use the ones with the grid form because they are a little bit stronger. And as peonies age, if they're not divided, they just get bigger and bigger and bigger. But the thing about those ones with the grids is that they can be pretty expensive. And these are really cheap. This is a beautiful white peony called Festiva maxima. Really huge white blooms with these raspberry streaks on the inner petals. And this particular peony is very special to me because when we moved here, there was a small peony clump way on the back of the property underneath a burning bush, which I've since taken out. And I saw the leaves and I thought, oh my goodness, a peony back here in full shade, and of course it didn't bloom. So I started moving it around the garden, dividing it every year, and now I think we have I would say at least 7 different plants of Festiva maxima peony, all from that initial clump I found in the shade under that burning bush. I just love that story, and this peony is very special to me, as is another one that I have to show you. So this peony is from my grandma's garden, and after her passing and after my grandfather's passing, before they sold the house, before my aunt and uncle sold the house, my Aunt Maria, my mom, and I went back to the garden one last time and we all dug up a few things. I think I got some Siberian iris from there, which is over there. I can show you it in a second. But I dug up a peony root and it wasn't in bloom. I can't remember exactly when we were there, but I just noticed the foliage, you know, and so I took it, had it over in the driveway garden for about 2 years where it really wasn't doing very good. I think it put out 1 bloom, which I might have showed you last year. But after it bloomed last year in the driveway garden and I saw it just wasn't the ideal location, I moved it over here, and now look, it's covered in blooms. This is like, to me, this is why we garden. This is her. She's here. I saved her, and I'm just so glad I finally found a good place, and I'm so excited for this. I'm not gonna sell a single peony bloom from this plant. This is just so special. Things like this, you know, you can't bring back the people that you lost, but you can have a piece of their garden forever. And when it comes to peonies, that's why they're so special. They'll just live forever. I can give this peony to my daughter someday. So I want to take really good care of it. Ants on the blooms, no problem at all there. They don't do any harm to the blooms at all. This might need 2 supports actually. So I'll get another one. I don't want any of these precious blooms flopping over. I want to be careful too not to injure the roots as I push these supports into the ground. So I'm really doing it on a very wide angle. I'm not going in really close to the stems because there's a good chance that I could just pinch right through one of those roots. So I want to go ahead and get nice and wide. I like to do it almost wide and at an angle. I kind of like where they still feel like they're spilling over and falling a little bit, but I don't want them to fall completely over and to have their bloom heads land in the soil. I'm going to go ahead and plant up these dahlia tubers amongst the basil now. And as I was thinking about what I wanted to interplant with my dahlias, I really wanted to focus more on food and herbs with the dahlias. Dahlias take so long to come to maturity. They're not blooming here until August, September. They really don't like it here until September when we start to cool down. So I have basically 3 full months where I can grow around them. So I could do something like a single cut sunflower, like a saponaria, a corn cockle, a buplurum, atriplex, something that comes to maturity really quickly. I could just utilize the space around them, probably even lilies, and basically cut that plant down to the ground. And as that plant is basically done, the dahlias at that point in the growing season can take over. So really this is a great place for a single stem flower, a single stem filler, or even a single stem bulb. Something that's going to turn quickly, like 60 days to maturity, would work really well planted around your dahlias, which are just going to kind of sit here for a month or 2. Now I have tons. I don't know if you can see in the background there. This year I have so much feverfew that I really don't need to plant a lot of filler. And so that's why I wanted to lean heavily into more things like basil and herb, which once they start competing with the dahlias, I'll just go ahead and cut them at ground level. I can harvest prior to that, of course, as need be. But one thing that happens with basil in my area is that they usually get downy mildew. We're just really high humidity here. Even cultivars that I've tried that say that they're resistant to downy mildew, they still get it. So the way that I deal with that is once I see even a little bit of downy mildew setting in, I just harvest the whole plant. I'm going to bury the eyes about 1 inch below the soil surface. I saw David Howard at Longwood Gardens last year. It has these amazing large dinner plate sized blooms. They're orange, but the foliage is this beautiful purple color. So I thought the contrast of the purple with the other green that I'm going to have in this area would be really nice. But honestly, as I said the other day, the older I get, the more I just really love orange. Orange and purple just really do it for me. And this one is a new one I've never grown before also. I'll have to put the name on the screen. I can't remember exactly what it is. Kind of a complex name. But I think it's a dinner plate cactus. So I'm doing these 18 inches apart from each other in both directions. And the nice thing too about doing something like an herb is they're so cheap. I mean, I got this basil seed for I think 25 cents last year at the dollar store when it all went on sale, you know. So really, even if I'm only able to harvest a decent amount of basil from these plants before I need to pull them because they either get downy mildew or they start to compete, all this basil only cost me 25 cents, and certainly that was worth it. You guys, it's like 8 o'clock and it's already so incredibly hot and humid. I'm gonna need to change immediately. But basically what I'm doing is whenever I have a North Lawn Saving Grace that's about this size in a pot, because I've been growing them on the porch, I'm just popping them into the borders about, I would say, maybe 5 feet back from the front of the border. I'm gonna push this one back a little bit closer to those bearded irises. So my hope is, and here's what I'm struggling with, is this side gets full sun all day. So I know Saving Grace will do really well over here. But this side of my border gets only afternoon sun. And I just don't know what to do. I don't know if it's gonna look really weird to only have Saving Grace on one side, or if I should put some Saving Grace over here knowing that it's gonna just not get enough sun. I have some more time to think about that because I have lots more of her on the porch still growing. So here's what she's looking like. Looking real good. So this is actual North Lawn Saving Grace. And last I heard from Jung Seed, I think they had about 100 cuttings. And then what I also did is I sent out some seed of Saving Grace to some people. And all those seeds will be a surprise in terms of what they produce. I feel like Saving Grace's best attribute is that she's an awesome tuber producer. She produces like massive amounts of tubers the first year. So if you get her once, you'll have her forever. You'll have lots of her. The bees love her, the butterflies love her. And I think simple flowers are nice, honestly. I'll take a simple dahlia with an open center over a big showy dahlia any day. I'm probably in the minority on that, but I think I'd rather have the bees and the butterflies versus one of those really showy dinner plate dahlias. Everything has its place, right? But here in the border, I love the thought that I would just walk through my borders and just have bees and butterflies all around me, and hummingbirds. So here we have it. I'm planting her pretty close to this bearded iris here because the Annabelle hydrangea next to me is gonna get pretty big on that side. So what I want to do this year is save as much seed as I can from North Lawn Saving Grace and then give all that seed away to you guys for free. Last year, I think I was able to give away about 20 packets. And every once in a while, someone will send me a card or something, and I always want to send something back in return. And last year, I was so sad when I ran out of Saving Grace dahlia seed to give out to you guys. So I want to be really proactive, get as much seed from her as possible. And so then that seed probably needs to be called maybe Saving Grace Family, because as I say, they're not going to be Saving Grace, they're going to be her children. So what do you think? Saving Grace Family? Saving Grace and Family? I have to think about that. Well, friends, thanks so much for spending some time with me and Gracie out in the garden today. I'll see you sometime real soon for lots more interplanting. And I just want to thank you again for watching these videos. It really brings me so much joy to spend time out in the garden with you and Grace. I'll see you sometime soon. Bye.